The scream tore through the mansion at 2:47 a.m. Jake Morrison was already running before his eyes fully opened, his bare feet hitting cold marble as he sprinted down the hallway. Not again. Please, not again. Emma's bedroom door stood open, golden light spilling into the dark corridor. Inside, his 8-year-old daughter sat rigid in bed, her small body shaking violently, eyes wide but unseeing. The fourth panic attack this week. "Emma, baby, I'm here. Daddy's here." His voice cracked as he reached for her, but she didn't respond. She never did during these episodes. Lost somewhere he couldn't follow, trapped in whatever nightmare had stolen his wife and now haunted their daughter. Then he saw her. Keisha stood in the doorway in her robe, her natural curls loose around her shoulders, concern etched across her face. And for reasons Jake couldn't explain, Emma's eyes suddenly focused, not on him, but on the woman who was supposed to be just their maid. Before we continue with what happens next, I want to know, where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you're already hooked and want to see how this story unfolds, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens when Jake realizes his daughter has found the one person who can reach her, and it's the last person he should be falling for. Now, let's get into the story. Keisha Williams had perfected the art of being invisible. She moved to the Morrison mansion like a ghost, silent, efficient, unremarkable. Dust the library shelves. Vacuum the sitting room no one sat in. Polish the dining table that seated 12, but only ever served one grieving man and his shell-shocked daughter. The agency had warned her. Asterisk, Mr. Morrison values privacy above all else. Do your job. Don't ask questions. Don't get involved. Asterisk. Easy enough. Keisha needed this job too badly to screw it up with misplaced curiosity or, God forbid, feelings. The pay was almost enough to cover her sister Amber's treatment at the rehabilitation center. 3 more months and the debt would finally be manageable. 3 more months of being invisible in someone else's tragedy. She was cleaning the 3rd-floor hallway when she first heard the crying. Soft, muffled, coming from behind a door decorated with fading butterfly stickers. Keisha's hand hovered over her cleaning cart. Asterisk, not your business. Keep moving, asterisk. But the sound, broken, helpless, young, pulled at something deep in her chest. Before nursing school fell apart and Amber's accent consumed everything, Keisha had worked pediatrics. She knew the difference between regular crying and the sound of a child drowning. She knocked softly. "Hello? You okay in there?" Silence. Then, "Go away?" The voice was small but fierce. Keisha almost smiled. "I am Keisha. I work here. I heard you crying and want to make sure you're all right." "I'm not crying." "Definitely crying." "Okay, well, if you're not crying, maybe you could help me with something? I'm supposed to clean your room, but I don't want to mess up anything important. Think you could show me what not to touch?" A long pause. Then the door cracked open. The girl was tiny for 8 years old, all sharp elbows and messy blonde hair, with her father's gray eyes currently rimmed red. She wore princess pajamas and an expression that said she was too old for princess pajamas, but too sad to care. "You're the new maid," Emma said flatly. "That's me. You must be Emma." "How do you know my name?" "Your dad mentioned you when I started last week." A lie. Jake Morrison had barely acknowledged Keisha's existence beyond signing her employment papers. Emma studied her with unsettling intensity. "The other maids never talked to me." "Well, I'm not great at following rules." Keisha crouched down to eye level. "Want to tell me what's wrong, or should we pretend you were doing vocal exercises?" For just a second, Emma's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Then her face crumpled. "I miss my mom." "Oh." Keisha's heart cracked clean open. "Come here, sweetheart." She opened her arms, expecting rejection. But Emma crashed into her, small hands fisting in Keisha's uniform as sobs shook her thin frame. Keisha held her, rocking slightly, murmuring the kind of nonsense comfort that has no words but somehow means everything. The kind her own mother used to offer before cancer took her too. She didn't hear footsteps. Didn't sense him standing there until his voice cut through the moment like broken glass. "What the hell is going on here?" Keisha's head snapped up. Jake Morrison filled the doorway. 6 feet of expensive suit and cold fury, his dark hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. Up close, he was younger than she'd realized, handsome in that sharp-edged way grief carves into a person's face, and absolutely livid. "Mr. Morrison, Emma, go to your room." His eyes never left Keisha. "But, Daddy, now." Emma fled, casting one desperate look back at Keisha before disappearing down the hall. Jake stepped into the room, closing the door with deliberate calm. When he spoke, his voice was deadly quiet. "Let me make something very clear. You were hired to clean, not to play therapist with my daughter, not to insert yourself into our lives. Do you understand?" Keisha stood slowly, fighting to keep her voice steady. She was crying. "I wasn't going to ignore a child in pain. That's not your call to make." His jaw clenched. "My daughter's been through enough without staff members overstepping boundaries and confusing her about who actually matters in her life." The words hit like a slap. Who actually matters? With all due respect, Mr. Morrison, she needed someone. She needs consistency in professionals, not sympathy from a help. The help, there it was, the reminder of exactly where she stood in his world. Keisha felt heat rise in her chest, anger mixing with humiliation. She needed this job, needed it desperately, but she'd be damned if she let this man reduce her to furniture. "You're right," she said evenly. "I apologize for overstepping. It won't happen again." She moved toward the door, but his voice stopped her. "Ms. Williams." She turned, expecting more condescension. Instead, she found something unexpected in his eyes. Exhaustion. Bone-deep, soul-crushing exhaustion. "I'm not," he stopped, rubbing his face. "Look, Emma gets attached easily. Since her mother died, anyone who shows her kindness, she latches on. And then when they leave, which they always do, she falls apart again. I can't." His voice cracked slightly. "I can't watch her lose anyone else." Understanding crashed over Keisha. This wasn't about her at all. "I understand," she said quietly. "I'll keep my distance." She left before he could say anything else, before she could see more of the broken man hiding behind the billionaire mask. "Not your problem. Not your life. Stay invisible." 2 weeks later, the nightmare started. Keisha heard them from her room in the staff quarters. Emma's screams echoing through the mansion at ungodly hours. Heard Jake's frantic footsteps, his desperate voice trying to reach his daughter through whatever darkness had swallowed her. She stayed in her room, respected boundaries, did her job, but every scream carved another piece out of her heart. She saw the toll it took on Jake, too. The man was unraveling. He started working from home, which meant Keisha saw him more, pacing his office at dawn, still in yesterday's clothes, staring at nothing during breakfast, looking at Emma like she was made of glass and might shatter if he breathed wrong. The house felt like it was holding its breath. Then came the night everything changed. Keisha was in the kitchen at midnight, unable to sleep, making tea when she heard it. Emma's door opening, small footsteps padding down the stairs. Emma appeared in the kitchen doorway, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit, her face streaked with dry tears. "I can't sleep," she whispered. Keisha's throat tightened. "Does your dad know you're down here?" Emma shook her head. "He's asleep. He never really sleeps anymore. So when he does, I don't want to wake him. Smart kid. Heartbreaking kid. Come here." Keisha patted the chair beside her. Just for a minute. Emma climbed up, her small legs swinging. Keisha poured her warm milk with honey, something her own mother used to make. They sat in silence for a while. Then Emma said, "You remind me of her. My mom." Keisha's hand still on her cup. "Yeah. She used to make me warm milk too. And she never told me to go away when I was sad." Emma's voice dropped. "Daddy doesn't mean to, but sometimes he gets this look like my sadness is hurting him. So I try to be less sad." Jesus, this child was 8 years old and already learning to make herself smaller for someone else's comfort. "Your dad loves you very much," Keisha said carefully. "But grown-ups sometimes forget that kids need to feel their feelings, even the hard ones." "Do you have kids?" "No, But I have a little sister who I've taken care of since she was about your age. She's grown now, but she'll always be my baby. Is she nice?" Keisha smiled sadly. "She's wonderful and complicated and going through some tough stuff right now. But I love her more than anything." Emma leaned her head against Keisha's arm. The gesture was so trusting, so natural, it made Keisha's eyes burn. "I wish you were my mom," Emma whispered. Before Keisha could respond, a sharp intake of breath made them both turn. Jake stood in the kitchen doorway, his expression unreadable. "Emma, bed, now!" His daughter scrambled down, abandoning her milk, and disappeared without a word. Keisha stood slowly, preparing for another lecture about boundaries. But Jake just stared at her, something raw and desperate in his eyes. "She hasn't talked about her mother in months," he said hoarsely. "She won't talk to me at all anymore. The therapist says she's shutting down. And then you—" He stopped, shaking his head. "Who the hell are you?" "Just someone who sees her," Keisha said quietly. "Really sees her. I see her." His voice broke. "I see her every second of every day. I see her slipping away from me, and I don't know how to reach her anymore." The mask had fully cracked. This wasn't the cold billionaire. This was just a father drowning in grief and terror, watching his child disappear into the same darkness that took his wife. "Mr. Morrison. Jake. My name is Jake." "Jake." The name felt strange on her tongue. Intimate. "Emma's not shutting down. She's protecting you. She thinks her sadness hurts you, so she's hiding it. She's 8 years old, and she's trying to take care of you." He flinched like she'd struck him. "She needs permission to fall apart," Keisha continued. "And she needs someone who won't fall apart with her. And that's you?" He laughed bitterly. "A stranger? A maid? No, that's a trained grief counselor. A support system. Maybe even a support group for kids who've lost parents." Keisha held his gaze. "But until you find those things, yeah, maybe it's a maid who's been where she is and knows what it feels like when everyone expects you to be okay before you're ready." Silence stretched between them. Finally, Jake said, "I hired you to clean my house. I know this isn't your job. I know if you get attached and leave, I won't." The words came out with more certainty than Keisha felt. But looking at this broken man and thinking of that heartbroken little girl upstairs, she knew with sudden clarity she couldn't walk away. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. Jake studied her for a long moment. Then, so quietly she almost missed it, "Help me, please. I don't know what to do anymore." It wasn't an employer asking an employee. It was one human being reaching out to another in desperation. "Okay," Keisha said. "Okay." Keisha would happen to be nearby when Emma had her episodes. She'd read to her before bed nothing formal, just whatever book Emma wanted. She'd make warm milk when nightmares struck. She became a steady, quiet presence that asked nothing and offered everything. Jake watched from a distance at first, suspicious and grateful in equal measure. But slowly, something shifted. He started lingering in doorways when Keisha sang Emma to sleep. Started asking her opinion about therapists, about school options, about whether Emma seemed better or worse that day. Started looking at her like she was less a member of staff and more a lifeline he hadn't known he needed. And Keisha God helped her start looking back. It happened in stolen moments. The way his whole face softened when Emma laughed for the first time in weeks. How he'd make coffee for Keisha without being asked, remembering she took it black with 1 sugar. The night she found him crying silently in his office, staring at a photo of his late wife. And instead of leaving, she simply sat with him in the darkness until he could breathe again. Her name was Sophie, he said that night, his voice raw. "We met in college. She was studying art history, and I was convinced I was going to change the world with technology." A broken laugh. "She used to say I was too serious, that I forgot to actually live while I was busy building empires." She sounded wonderful. She was everything. Jake's hands trembled around his whiskey glass. And then one day she went pick him up from school, and a drunk driver ran a red light. Just like that. Everything gone. Keisha's throat burned. "I'm so sorry. Everyone's sorry." Sorry doesn't bring her back. Sorry doesn't tell me how to raise a daughter alone. Sorry doesn't. His voice cracked. Emma looks just like her. Same smile. Same way of tilting her head when she's thinking. And every time I look at my daughter, I see everything I lost and everything I'm failing at. You're not failing. I can't even hold my own child when she's screaming. The confession tore out at him. She has a panic attack, and I freeze. I don't know what to do. I'm terrified I'll make it worse. So I just stand there like an idiot while she suffers. Keisha moved without thinking, kneeling beside his chair. Jake, look at me. He did, and the devastation in his eyes nearly broke her. You love her. That's not nothing. And the fact that you're here, trying, asking for help, that's everything. Emma knows you love her. How? How does she know when I can't even? Because you're still here. You didn't send her away to boarding school or bury yourself in work and pretend she doesn't exist. You're here every day, even when it's killing you. That's love, Jake. That's what she'll remember. His hand came up, almost involuntarily, and touched her face. Just a whisper of contact, his thumb brushing her cheek. How did you get so wise? He murmured. I'm not wise. I've just been broken, too. The air between them shifted, charged with something dangerous and undeniable. Jake's eyes dropped to her mouth, and Keisha's breath caught. This was wrong. So wrong. He was her employer. She was his employee. He was grieving. She was here for his daughter, not. Jake pulled back abruptly, standing so fast he nearly knocked over his drink. I should go. It's late. Keisha stood on shaking legs. Right. Of course. Good night, Mr. Morrison. Jake, he said quietly. It's Jake. She fled before she could do something catastrophically stupid. The scream was different this time. Keisha was out of bed and running before conscious thought caught up. She burst into Emma's room to find Jake already there. But something was terribly wrong. Emma wasn't just having a panic attack. She was gasping, lips tinged blue, clawing at her throat. She can't breathe. Jake's voice was pure terror. Oh, God, she can't breathe? Keisha's training kicked in. Emma, look at me. Look at me, sweetheart. But Emma's eyes were wild, unseeing, her small body convulsing. Call 911. Keisha ordered, moving to the bed. Jake, call 911 now. He fumbled for his phone while Keisha assessed. Not choking. Airway clear. This was psychosomatic, a panic attack. So severe Emma's body had convinced itself it couldn't breathe. Emma, baby, I need you to listen to my voice. Keisha gathered the child against her chest. Firm and grounding. You're safe. I've got you. We're going to breathe together. Okay? In through your nose. Emma thrashed, but Keisha held firm, her voice steady and sure. In through your nose, 1, 2, 3. Out through your mouth, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it, baby. You're doing it. Again. In 2, 3. Out 2, 3, 4. Slowly, painfully, Emma's breathing began to regulate. Color returned to her lips. Her body went limp against Keisha's, exhausted. That's my girl, Keisha whispered, rocking her. You're okay. You're safe. I've got you. Jake stood frozen by the door, phone in hand, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Ambulance is coming, he said hoarsely. Cancel it. Keisha met his eyes. She's okay now, but she needs to see her regular doctor tomorrow. This is escalating. Jake nodded numbly, speaking into the phone, then ending the call. When he looked up again, his eyes were shining with unshed tears. I couldn't. I didn't know what to. It's okay. It's not okay. The words exploded out of him. My daughter almost stopped breathing, and I stood there useless. If you hadn't been here, if you hadn't known what to do, he broke off, pressing his palms against his eyes. I can't lose her. I can't lose her, too. Emma stirred in Keisha's arms. Daddy? Jake was at her side instantly, kneeling. I'm here, baby girl. I'm right here. I'm sorry I scared you. No, sweetheart, you don't apologize for that. His voice shook. I am sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't know how to help you. Keisha helped. Emma's small hand found Keisha's. She always helps. Jake's eyes met Keisha's over his daughter's head, and the emotion there was so raw, so unguarded, it stole her breath. "Yeah," he said softly, "she does." After Emma finally fell asleep, Jake walked Keisha to the door of her room. They stood in the dimly lit hallway, neither quite ready to say goodnight. "Thank you," Jake said. "That word isn't big enough for what you did tonight, but thank you. You don't need to thank me. Ido. He stopped, running a hand through his hair. "Keisha, I need to ask you something, and you can absolutely say no. But Emma's doctor has been recommending a more intensive therapy program, residential, for kids with severe grief-related trauma." Keisha's heart sank. "You're sending her away?" "No. God, no. I can't." His voice cracked. "I looked into it. It's supposed to be excellent. But when I imagine putting her in a car and dropping her off with strangers, I want to throw up. She's 8 years old, and she's already lost her mother, and the idea of her thinking I'm abandoning her too. Jake, so I'm not doing it. I'm keeping her here with me, and we're going to figure this out together." He took a shaky breath. "But I need help, real help, not just a maid who happens to be good with kids. I'm asking you." His eyes locked on hers. "I'm asking if you consider becoming Emma's full-time nanny. Official position, proper salary, benefits. I'll triple what I'm paying you now." Keisha stared at him. "Jake, I'm not qualified. You're the most qualified person I know. You have medical training. You understand grief. And most importantly, Emma trusts you. She feels safe with you in a way she doesn't with anyone else, including me." "That's not true." "It is true." Pain flickered across his face. "And it kills me, but right now, I'm grateful for it. Because if she has you, maybe she'll be okay until I figure out how to be the father she needs." Keisha's mind raced. This was everything she shouldn't do. Getting more involved, blurring more lines, spending more time with a man she was increasingly aware of in ways that had nothing to do with employment. But Emma's face flashed in her mind. That little girl who'd lost so much, who'd wrapped herself around Keisha's heart without permission. "What about my sister?" The words came out before she could stop them. "I'm working here to pay for her treatment. If I change positions, whatever you need for your sister's care, it's covered." Jake's voice was firm. "Consider it part of your employment package. Full coverage, whatever facility she's in, whatever she needs." Keisha's eyes burned. "You can't just, that's too much. It's not nearly enough for what you've given us." He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat of him, smell his cologne mixed with exhaustion and desperation. "Please, Keisha, I'm begging you. Stay. Not as the maid. As family." The word hung between them, loaded with meaning neither was ready to examine. "Okay," Keisha whispered. "Okay, I'll stay." The relief that crashed over Jake's face was so profound it was almost painful to witness. And then he did something that changed everything. He pulled her into his arms. It wasn't romantic. It was raw need and gratitude and exhaustion all wrapped in one desperate embrace. Keisha froze for half a second before her arms came around him, and suddenly she realized how long it had been since anyone had held her, since she'd been anything other than strong. They stood there in the dim hallway, two broken people holding each other up, neither quite ready to let go. When they finally pulled apart, something fundamental had shifted. "I need you tonight," Jake whispered, his voice rough with emotion. The words from earlier echoed with new meaning, not just for Emma. "I need God, Keisha, I can't do this alone anymore." "You're not alone," she said softly. "You haven't been alone for a while now." His hand came up, cupping her face with devastating gentleness. For one heart-stopping moment, Keisha thought he might kiss her, wanted him to kiss her with an intensity that terrified her. But instead, Jake pressed his forehead to hers, his breath shaky against her skin. "Don't move," he murmured. "Just stay right here. Just for a minute." So she did. They stood there in the quiet darkness. Two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of grief, holding on like they were each other's anchor in a storm that wouldn't stop. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Keisha felt like she was exactly where she belonged. Emma's laughter rang through the garden as she chased butterflies, her blonde hair flying behind her. The panic attacks had decreased to once every few weeks, manageable now with therapy and the security of knowing she was loved unconditionally by the two people watching her from the patio. "She's really doing better," Keisha said softly, watching the little girl who became her whole heart. "Because of you." Jake's hand found hers on the table, their fingers intertwining naturally, a gesture that had become as essential as breathing over the past months. Their relationship had evolved slowly, carefully. Stolen moments in the kitchen after Emma went to bed, hands brushing during dinner, conversations that stretched into early morning. Jake courting her the way a man courts a woman, when there's a grieving child to consider, when the stakes are impossibly high, when getting it wrong means destroying the fragile family they'd built from broken pieces. "Because of us," Keisha corrected. "You did the work, Jake. You let yourself be vulnerable. You learned to reach her. I learned from you." His thumb traced circles on her wrist. "Everything good in my life right now. I learned from you." Emma called out from the garden, "Keisha, Daddy, come see." They went together, and Emma showed them a butterfly that had landed on her finger, a moment of pure magic and innocence that would have been impossible a year ago. "Make a wish," Emma whispered to the butterfly before it flew away. Then she looked up at them with those gray eyes so like her father's and said, "I wish for us to always be together, all three of us." Jake's hand tightened on Keisha's. When she looked at him, his eyes held a question she'd been waiting for, hoping for, terrified of an equal measure. "Yeah," he asked softly, just for her. And Keisha, who'd come to this house to be invisible, who'd taken a job cleaning floors to save her sister, who'd never imagined she'd find a broken man and his daughter and somehow become the missing piece they needed. "Yeah," she whispered back. Emma squealed and threw her arms around both of them, and they stood there in the garden. A father who'd learned to hope again, a daughter who'd learned to breathe, and a woman who'd learned that sometimes family isn't who you're born to, but who you choose to save and who chooses to save you right back. That night, after Emma was asleep, Jake found Keisha on the balcony overlooking the garden. "I need you tonight," he said, echoing those words from months ago. But this time, there was no desperation, only certainty, only love. "I'm here," she answered. "I'm not going anywhere." And when he kissed her, finally, after months of wanting and waiting and building something real and lasting, it felt like coming home. They built their future slowly, carefully, with Emma at the center of every decision. A year later, Jake proposed with Emma's full participation. The three of them on the beach at sunset, with Emma presenting Keisha with a ring she'd helped pick out. "Will you be my mom?" Emma asked, her voice wobbling but strong. "For real?" Keisha looked at this child who'd broken her heart open, at this man who'd taught her that love after loss was possible, at the family they'd built from grief and hope and stubborn determination to heal together. "For real," she promised. "Forever." At the wedding, Emma stood between them, holding both their hands, exactly where she belonged. The officiant spoke about love and second chances, and families built from choice rather than blood. And when he pronounced them married, Emma cheered louder than anyone. Keisha stood in the doorway of Emma's room, watching her now 13-year-old daughter, because that's what she was, adoption papers and all, sprawled across her bed doing homework. "Mom." Emma looked up. "Can you help me with this essay? It's about people who influence your life." "Sure, baby. Who are you writing about?" Emma smiled that same smile that had first broken Keisha's heart in this very room so many years ago. "You. I'm writing about you." Keisha's eyes burned. "Yeah. You showed up when we needed you most. You didn't have to care about me or Dad, but you did. You taught me that family is about showing up, about choosing to love people even when it's hard. You taught Dad how to be himself again. And you taught me that it's okay to be sad, and okay to be happy, and okay to let people help you." She paused and added softly, "I think Mom would have really liked you." Keisha crossed the room and pulled her daughter into her arms. This girl who'd survived so much loss and come out the other side strong and beautiful and kind. "I think I would have really liked her too," Keisha whispered. "And I promise you, I'm going to spend the rest of my life being worthy of the trust she'd have in me to love you and your dad." "You already are, Mom. You already are. Later that night, curled up in bed with Jake, Keisha thought about the woman she'd been when she first walked into this house. Desperate, invisible, just trying to survive. What are you thinking about? Jake murmured, pulling her closer. Just that I came here to clean your house, and instead you gave me a home. He kissed her temple. You saved us, Keisha. Emma and me, we were drowning, and you pulled us back to shore. We save each other, she corrected. That's how family works. And it was true. They'd all been broken. They'd all been lost. But they'd found each other in the darkness and built something beautiful from the wreckage. A family forged not in perfection, but in the messy, complicated, absolutely breathtaking business of choosing to love and keep loving even when it's terrifying. Emma's laughter drifted from her room. She was on the phone with friends, her voice light and carefree in a way that had once seemed impossible. She's going to be okay, Jake said quietly. She's going to be better than okay, Keisha promised. She's going to be extraordinary. Because that's what happens when broken people refuse to stay broken, when they choose healing over hiding, when they build families from hope and second chances and the radical belief that love, real, messy, complicated, beautiful love can transform anything, even a billionaire's daughter, and the maid who was never just a maid at all.